Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most. If you are hungry, you're going to want to grab something to snack on because we're going to talk about restaurants that don't exist in our area anymore, that darn it should exist, and we get deep into some of those dishes that you want really bad, and some mini golf, and we're going to talk about employee rights when it comes to the food service workers. A lot to handle on this episode of JJ Meets World.
And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Tucker, there's a lot of restaurants that no longer exist in the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo area that I miss a lot.
Man, we got to stop bringing up all these really depressing topics for these.
Oh, would you like should we get something that peps it up a little bit?
Yeah, I agree. I've been thinking about a couple of them lately. This was an idea I had pitched to you via text last night.
I loved it.
The context of it.
Yeah.
I'd gotten home, rough day of work, and I hadn't eaten yet, and I just thought, I just want pizza. And then I thought, I've always been going with Casey's or Pizza Hut. What's a pizza I haven't had for a long time that'd be like a great memory? And it was Pizza Patrol. I haven't had Pizza Patrol for lunch. I ordered some Pizza Patrol and I was eating it and it was delicious. And I thought, man, this is a flavor that goes back to my childhood. Pizza Patrol has not changed since I was a kid. And that started to get me to think of what are some of the places in our neck of the woods that we've eaten at that are flat out gone forever. I'll never get to eat there again, or more than likely for some of them, definitely for some other ones.
Yep.
And what that was like, and that seemed like a good jumping off point.
Now, I don't mean to call you a liar, but I've got some inside information that you don't know about as just a regular plebe out there in the world. But I sometimes people pull back the curtain for me a little bit, right?
Really?
Schwann's, okay, which rebranded themselves to Yellow,
Okay.
which was dumb because everyone knew the Schwann's was this. So Schwann's has made some pretty drastic changes in the last couple of years. The rebranding to Yellow, for whatever reason. They've decided to drop North Dakota as a client, full stop. So, there will be no more Schwann's man coming, delivering those delicious, ice cream cones that I love so much. They're going to keep Minnesota, so I might be looking for somebody who lives in Moorhead to hook me up fat one of these days. But they also had a commercial line that they provided to places. And included with that, Pizza Patrol purchased their French bread crust from Schwann's.
Okay.
They've been using the same French bread crust, which is what they're known for, right?
Well, I guess for me, the thing that stands out to me is just the flavor profile of the sauce and cheese and the sort of texture of the crust. The crust reminded me of what I'm used to, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it's different. It's been so long since I've done it. But its flavoring on top tasted the same.
Yes. So this is, I guess, where I'm going with this. So Schwann's has decided to stop carrying this crust that Pizza Patrol has become famous for over the years.
Pizza Patrol is in Minnesota.
But they've dropped their commercial line. So it's one of the many changes. So not only do they drop North Dakota, they're also switching their residential. They dropped their commercial line.
They just weren't making enough money here.
I don't know if it's that they weren't making enough money or maybe just the corporate structure and what it is.
The thing is anyways.
So the owners of Pizza Patrol go, hold on, wait a minute. We literally printed on the side of the box French bread crust. So they have taste tested, I think, something like 200 different products from across the country and found the one that they felt was the closest.
Hey.
And maybe even improved upon what the previous one was. And so there is nostalgia there 100%. And like I said, I don't want to call you a liar.
I'm not a liar.
Dirty, disgusting liar. But I think that it's nice to know that the company went to such lengths because really they could have just purchased whatever they wanted from another Cisco.
It wasn't their choice that Schwann's discontinued that product. And I deeply appreciate that they said our customers expect something specific, and we want to give them that. That's what makes us Pizza Patrol. And so I really love the fact that they went through that process of tasting. We got to find the closest thing we can, and
like I said, it might be an improvement.
Yeah, it totally fooled me. It felt like this is classic Pizza Patrol. So I guess they were really successful for me.
Good.
But then I thought of Giovanni's, man.
Oh yeah,
Giovanni's is technically, quotes, sold at Mick's office right now. They have a sign. It's the old sign. I haven't tasted it there. I'm just assuming they bought the brand, and it's really just whatever frozen pizza that they're putting out there. I haven't actually tasted it yet, but Giovanni's was what I grew up on. Mm-hmm. That had its own flavor profile. I think the closest thing that comes to it today is Casey's, but it's still not the same. There's just something that's missing. It's not there anymore.
The reason I used to like Giovanni's the most as a kid is like, so when you think of pizza, you think of like the Ninja Turtles taking a piece of pizza and it's got the long like tendrils of cheese. Giovanni's never had that because the cheese coagulated during delivery and it was so thick on top of there that it was hard to cut through. I loved that. Loved that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I have such great memories of going to the Giovanni's in North Fargo by Ben Franklin when my dad would bring me and my little sister there. And then he'd pretend to put coins in the arcade games. And so we would like play the demo that's going on or whatever. And
we always so good at Dig Dug, I bet.
Right? And we wanted to play the pool table, not knowing what you do with it. So he would just say, oh, you just throw this white ball around. And so we would just throw the cue ball around on the table.
Meanwhile, there's like a guy waiting there and he's like, these damn kids.
Well, and who was it that I spoke to that worked there? It wasn't Tim Larson, was it? Maybe it was. Someone we know worked there and once recently told me that there was like a guy who knew to come in during like the buffet hours and then would just stick around until they were closing down and see what they were throwing out and be like, what are you doing with that stuff?
Really?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who it was that told me that. I'm going to track that person down. Zero decor.
Yes,
nothing.
Right.
White walls. That was it. That's the way a pizzeria should be. Mm-hmm. White walls. You need the little Parmesan shaker and the little pepper shaker. And then you need a couple of pinball machines or something.
And you need a red cup for soda stippled on the outside.
Yes, absolutely.
And you've got a pizza joint.
Yeah. And you need plastic straws.
Oh, yeah.
Plastic straws.
There was a Giovanni's in South Fargo where the Hornbacher's Express is in that little strip mall right there. I think it's now part of the Animal Health Clinic at this point.
Probably, yeah.
And that was so as a kid growing up, here's what I had access to. Within a block and a half of each other, I had a Giovanni's, I had a Pizza Hut standalone restaurant, and a Dwayne's House of Pizza. It was, I mean, you could have called it like Little Italy of Fargo. South University Drive was the Little Italy because of those three pizza places. And it was amazing. Oh, the glory days. And the thing was, not too far away, there was also a Domino's Pizza. I had that phone number. I believe 232-5333 was the Domino's number growing up when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, but we know 241-9000.
Right. Do you know what their website is for
241-9000?
It's genius.
That's what I ordered through last night.
241-9000.com.
Yeah.
It's genius.
It was fantastic.
You know, the only thing that you can't do is request the college special and have someone say to you, like, don't pass out.
Oh.
You know, that's what you miss from ordering online rather than calling the actual, like, operator. So, okay, so Giovanni's was the one that kind of struck this idea with you that, like, what are the restaurants that are no more in Fargo Moorhead that we miss?
Yeah.
I'll talk. I thought about this for a while, and there's a couple local and a couple chain ones that I think we're missing. Number one, I would kill for a Fuddruckers.
Okay.
So much so that when I would go to the Twin Cities on France Avenue, there was a Fuddruckers. There was also a Fuddruckers in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I remember taking improv shows based on the fact of like, yeah, go give me some Fuddruckers. And if you've never been to a Fuddruckers, what you do is you went in and you were going down a cattle chute and you would tell them what size burger you wanted. And they had all the patties laid out in this big, long case. And you could get a 1 pound burger, a half-pound burger, a quarter pound, third pound. And you tell them how you want it, and there's like different they had like a salt and pepper seasoning, they had a Cajun seasoning, they had all these. And so then you would place your order, and they would give you a number. So like number 32, table 32. And when your meal was ready, you would go and pick up, and it was just the meat and cheese on a bun, and then your French fries with it. And then you walked over to the most glorious salad bar you've ever seen with all of the toppings you could ever want to put on a burger, and you control the toppings. You like pickles? Oh, brother, 4 inches thick worth of pickles. You want pump nacho cheese? You pump away until that bag empties. They have everything. And like they had salsa. I mean, and they also did chicken sandwiches too, but people went there for the burgers.
Yeah.
And so you could kind of make it the way you want. You know, they had fried onions, but they also had raw onions. They had lettuce. They had all the veggies you could ever want. And then jalapenos and all of this stuff.
There's no wrong way to eat an onion.
There's no, I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, I got a hot tip for you.
I'm pretty sure I've had pickled onions before and I was okay with it.
Oh, pickled red onions are amazing.
I think I have, but I can't remember.
Well, I'm going to make some for you.
Okay.
I make a jar.
Hopefully I liked it, and then I'll like it when you make it.
Even if you don't like it, they're great to cook with.
Okay.
Like, even if you don't like the raw pickled onion taste, which I do, and I'll put like on the top of eggs or a burger or something like that, it's great. And it's so simple because you make a simple brine with vinegar and a little bit of sugar. You put sugar in it because there's a lot of acidity in the onions. It's so good.
My number one is raw.
Raw onion.
Raw onion is my number one.
What color of onion are you choosing? Me too.
Red. I love a white onion. I mean, I have nothing against a white onion.
Yep.
And actually, you know, if I'm probably doing a Philly cheesesteak, I probably want the white onion just because that's more of the.
It looks better.
It's part of how it was made. It's part of that flavor profile.
Uh-huh.
But I wouldn't say no to red onions in there. After that, it's frying it.
Uh-huh.
So like a bloomin' onion.
Yep.
Would be
a
next.
deep fry.
Like a deep fry. That's what I mean. Sorry, deep fry would be that, and then a caramelized of some kind. I love caramelized.
You
onion.
like onion dip, right?
Love onion dip.
Okay, I got a huge pro tip for you. So Elton Brown, okay, the cast clay onion dip is not the cast clay onion dip anymore.
Right, it's way different.
So the cast clay brand bought out by Kemp's, and so that's why there's green flecks in it. It never had green flecks. Somebody called into my radio show once and told me the reason that it doesn't taste the same is cast clay used something called like decalcified sour cream versus calcified sour cream. Calcified sour cream keeps longer and is not as high quality. And so to charge less for your product and make it in bulk, you would get this calcified one. But the decalcified one had a richer flavor. And so that's what cast clay used for their French onion dip and why it seems so creamy all the time. And so I found Elton Brown has a recipe for make at home French onion dip that is the closest I've ever tasted to the cast clay onion dip. And what he does is you essentially take like 10 onions and you put them all into a pot and you cook them down, but it takes like 10 hours.
Okay.
And you're cooking them down so much that
you're just boiling them?
Nope. You're putting the onions in a pot and you're putting like a plate on top of it to weigh it down.
Oh shit.
And so as the liquid cooks out of the onion, they become smaller and smaller and they're caramelizing the sugars in there. And so the plate slowly like goes down and down and down because this big pot of onions is now taking less and less space. And so as you cook those down, they become ultra concentrated. And so his thing takes like 10 hours. I found a hack for it. So what I do is I take 3 onions. I choose yellow onions for it just because they have a little bit of a sweeter taste to them. And I put them in my crock pot. And I put it on low. And I come back 10 hours later.
That makes total sense.
And they've all cooked down and they're perfect.
Okay.
And then you just...
Are you dicing them up first?
So I leave them in big chunks because then I'm going to put them like... Because when they come out, that's when I'm going to cut them up a little bit.
Okay.
And at this point, you're just kind of cutting through the mush, right?
Right.
And then you're adding a little bit of seasoning into some sour cream and mixing it together. Oh, brother.
Fantastic.
It's great. I digress, though. So when it comes to I think I had finished with Fuddruckers.
Yeah, I've been trying to search my brain for a Fuddruckers memory of mine. I don't really have one. Fuddruckers is something I would drive by all the time, you know.
Right.
I would go to Fudd Putters.
So here's the thing. The guy who owned the franchise for Fuddruckers in Fargo, I think, owned the lot next door and was like, we'll put a mini golf course there. Because I was shocked to see that Fuddruckers across the nation did not have an accompanying mini golf course called Fudd Putters.
Fudd Putters was awesome. I really enjoyed my time at
Me
Fudd
too.
Putters. That was probably a huge violation of the franchise agreement.
Yeah, probably.
In some way. Like imagine you own a local McDonald's and you put a McPutters right next to it.
I would love McPutters.
McPutters. I would 100% eat at McPutters all the time.
And here's the thing. What was great is you couldn't buy the mini golf inside of Fuddruckers. You had to go to the shack. The one, like, a human being could stand or sit in it and turn around without, like turn around, like, shuffling their feet. That's as big as that space was.
I wonder if you could open, I'm sure you could in some jurisdiction, a putt-putt golf course that also sells hamburgers.
Yeah.
And call it McPutters, MAC Putters, and just don't use anything close to the Golden Arches.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, I'm going down to McPutters. I'm getting myself a Mac rib. You probably can't say McRib. You have to say a McPutter rib or something like that.
They've got the Big Mac. We've got the Big Mick.
But it's like, let's just use the logic of people who made like all those toys that were clearly not Power Rangers, but were designed to be mistaken for Power Rangers
Bingo.
by someone.
It's the dollar store version of what you're talking about.
One of my favorite online memes is we have McDonald's at home, like the variation of that. And so in his form of like, Mom, I want hardcore West Coast rap music. We have hardcore West Coast rap music at home. And then it shows like some really fucking really shitty. I couldn't even name
like a Sugar Hill Gang album.
Yeah, something like that.
That avoided the church fire of like getting rid of the hip hop music. Okay, let's talk about another restaurant that you wish we still had in the FM area.
Oh man, we used to have this amazing place called Juano's in downtown Fargo.
Yeah.
Juano's Mexican food. I don't know where Juan is these days, if he's in Fargo anymore or not. And I don't know what it was that necessarily precipitated the fall or the closing of the restaurant, if it was just life or if it was spreading himself too thin. But at one point, they had the mothership in downtown Fargo where you could get a weekly taco bar over lunch, which was amazing.
And the carrot cake dessert alone was worth it.
Also, their homemade salsa, so good.
Yeah.
Their pico.
And I believe you can still get Juano's salsa and pico in the grocery stores. I don't know if someone bought the brand or what it is.
It's white label stuff. Yeah.
Is it?
So it's my understanding is it's just like, that brand got purchased and it's a white like we really need to do the JJ Meets World salsa at some point.
We should
just white label that shit. But then but I don't just miss Juano's downtown. I miss the Juano's burrito bars or burrito shops that were on town because, and maybe this is why they went out of business. You get so much food for so little money.
Yeah.
And getting a wet burrito from them was just the best. I mean, just with ranchero sauce all over it. Really, really tasty. I know one thing that was really tough for them was that I believe the only location with an actual kitchen was the downtown one. So they would prep all the food there in the morning, and then Juan himself would take it to the burrito satellite spots. And yeah, it didn't work out.
I knew that times were tough when they put a note up that said no free refills on the self-serve Coca-Cola machines.
That's the bad sign.
Yep.
That's
then
the
you're
real
like,
bad
no.
sign. I mean, I've never looked at the books of any of these restaurants, but I'm guessing it's not that they make all their money on soda, but they probably have the highest profit margin on the soda.
Bingo. You charge $2 for like a cup of soda,
right,
and you are making bank the whole time.
So they may not sell enough soda to make up what they need to make. It just so happens that the profit margin percentage is larger on that.
Now, I think one of the issues was, first of all, if he could have lasted a little bit longer in downtown, could you imagine like today, like Juano's today in downtown Fargo? Because at the time, like he was there for a time when like downtown really struggled.
That was one of the few things to go
before the big
to.
Renaissance, right?
One of the few things to go to.
And it had like enough space in there where you like at one point someone rented Juano's out for an FBI convention, like a regional FBI convention.
Shit.
And they hired line benders to perform at it. And I remember doing a show and they said, well, we'd like to invite you for dinner if you want to. And all of us were like, yep, sounds good. Because I ate 99.9% of the time, I ate Juano's taco bar. But if you ever went there and ordered off the menu, some of the stuff they had on the menu was out of this world. And I also remember, too, it being a rite of passage for people who were local waiters and waitresses.
Yes.
And they would have two things to say. Number one, when they work there, they'd be like, they work us to the bone. There's never a moment where we get to rest. We're, constantly rolling silverware, even if it's a downtime, there's something, there's cleaning, there's stuff like this. And then after they leave Wano's and go work anywhere else, they're like, I realized what an education they gave me was in that, you don't just come to work when things are, hopping. You are a part of that institution to keep things going.
Yeah.
And so I do miss their I think his big problem with the burrito spots is he picked bad locations. One of them was just over the river in Moorhead. And I'm like, I could, in 2 minutes, I could be at the mainstay, Wano location. And then the other one should have been great. Off the interstate on 13th Avenue, right before the shopping district, but it's in easily one of the worst strip malls to get into. Yeah. You literally have to drive behind it to get in front of it. I don't know how that Herbert's and Gerbert's has lived there that long.
It feels like those were one of the places that would have done really great in a late night bar district. Would have done really, really great in a college district.
If they could have been on that thing that started on 12th Avenue North, like just south of NDSU, where all those restaurants and like Herd and Horns is, it would have made bank.
Yeah. He might have just spread himself too thin, too. I mean, he had John Alexander's right next to that one. It was in Moorhead, named after his son, John, who I went to school with for a small period of time. So, I mean, but I can still smell the food. I can still taste it. And it's sad to know I'll never have it again. Yeah. Period. I never, ever will. What's one for you? I've been going off my list pretty good.
Fargo is missing a delicatessen. And we don't have anything close to what used to be Barb's Deli in downtown Fargo. Then eventually transitioned to First and Deli.
You have reopened a wound I had long closed.
And here's the beauty of it. So for a long time, I wanted to open up a deli in Fargo. And the idea is that you walk in, there's 4 kinds of bread. These are the different meats and cheeses. We make you a sandwich and stack it really high. You wrap it in paper, you hand it over. It's and like a barrel full of pickles. I know you're not a pickle guy, but it's got that. There's old men playing checkers on top of the barrel. Like when we're not,
Everyone who works there is like a grandma.
Bingo, right? Exactly.
So the food was amazing.
So these are the things that made Barb's or First and Deli perfect. Okay, number 1, they had 3 types of bread every single day. One of them was this garden vegetable bread out of this world.
Yep, I remember that.
2, sandwiches were simple, right? Simple sandwiches. It's
made in front of you.
Made in front of you. Not a lot of like pa to it. The best desserts and pie. They had a rhubarb pie that was just phenomenal.
The kind of place that like if you're into mayo, and you say, can I have some mayo on that? You're going to get real mayo.
Right. Or you could also get salad days on it, which I think was kind of unheard of. And they use, it's a knife. It's a long, like, it looks like an elongated spoon, like spatula. And that's how they slather it on.
Sound when it hits your sandwich and you go, oh, fuck yes.
It's so good. And they cut it in half and you are full by the time you are done with that sandwich. It was perfect.
You're going to take half of it home with you.
One of my favorite experiences in downtown Fargo of all time was working at the Fargo Theater, and that night, Jim Gaffigan was going to be at the Civic Center. And so I went to First and Deli for lunch. Jim Gaffigan's sitting there eating by himself. And so I get my sandwich, and I walk over, and I was like, hey, I'm going to your show tonight. Very excited. And then I said, sorry you have to come to Fargo. And he's like, no, like you guys.
Where was this at again?
This is at First and Deli.
Okay.
And he's going to be performing at the Civic Center. And he told me something that I will remember for the rest of my life, which is, listen, a lot of people can sell out a show in New York or LA or Chicago. You've really made it if you can sell out the Civic Center in Fargo. And he's right. It's
true.
It means that you are a household name across the nation. You're not just something trendy that only some people have heard of. Yep. You are an institution if you can sell out the Civic Center in Fargo, North Dakota.
Yeah, you also just reopened another wound for me, which is it reminded me of a lead into the next restaurant I want to
go for it.
And what I'm noticing is these are all like downtown Fargo spots.
Yeah.
When I worked at the Fargo Theater, this was close to Christmas, and the evening movie had started, and I was going to go get a sandwich at Subway. And so I told the person watching the front, like, hey, I'll be back. I'm on break. I'm going to go do that. And so as I'm walking down, this was when Public Enemy was in town that weekend to perform.
Yeah, I know this story.
To perform at the venue. what was it called? It was called the Venue, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Mhm.
And out of Billiards, which was in downtown at the time, comes this big group of guys, and in the middle of them is Flavor Flav. And I'm like, holy fuck, that is Flavor Flav right there. Massive clock hanging around. He wasn't wearing a Viking helmet, but he had a massive clock on. And like he had bodyguards and buddies with him and stuff. Huge crew. And the only reason I knew who he was because I had that previous year watched like the second season of Flavor of Love, first and second season with my friends, and we were obsessed with that show. And so I'm like, I'm just going to see where he goes. And so they're in front of me, and they all walk into the King House buffet. And that's another restaurant that I miss. And I'm like, I'm going to King House. That's where I'm going. I'm not going to Subway now, knowing I have to be back at the theater in like 10 minutes. I walk in, I pay for a buffet, and then as I walk past that bridge that you had to go over to get inside, I see that Flavor Flav is standing sort of in the lobby, and his crew, they're still with him, but no one's like blocking access to him, and fans are coming up and taking photos with him and shaking hands and stuff. So I thought, well, okay, clearly this is an okay time as a fan to approach. And so I walked up to him, and I called him Flav. I said, hey, Flav, I just want to say, and this was a lie, like I'm a fan of your music. I never actually listened to his music at that time. And I said, I also really like your TV show. And he said, thank you, man. God bless you and your family during this holiday season. And I said, thanks, man, you too. And I walked away, and I ate Chinese food as fast as I could while watching him do this same thing to a bunch of other people that approached, and then ran back to the theater as happy as can be. Called my parents, be like, just so you know, Flavor Flav is blessing all of us for our Christmas this year.
Oh,
it's going to be a good Christmas.
And what a better place than the King House.
Yeah.
To me, the King House is one of the last jewels of old Fargo that has been taken away.
If you want to get the closest thing to the King House experience today, you have to go to Giant Panda on 13th Avenue. I just went there recently, and like the snow shrimp is the same. They actually have even more options.
But they don't have lobster rolls, and that's what I love the most.
They might.
They don't.
They flat out don't?
I've asked them because I work like a hop, skip, and a jump away, and so like I go there on a frequent basis. And I said, do you ever make lobster rolls? And they said, no. We don't do lobster rolls. And I loved a lobster roll that had sat in the warmer too long and was extra like crispy and dried out. Oh, there's something about it. I wrote a blog years ago when the King House got some bad press because, in my opinion, there was a developer who was trying to push them out of downtown, and they insinuated that they are serving pigeon. Yeah. And here's my my answer. If I'm eating pigeon, it's freaking delicious. I will have 2 more helpings of pigeon, please. Hold the beak. Yeah. You know. My next restaurant is Old School Fargo. And right now in it is Acapulco, but it used to be called Mr. Steak. It is on the frontage road that goes along I-29. It is just north of 13th Avenue. And Mr. Steak was a classic steakhouse, right? So you walk in there. It's got a big old salad bar. When you'd order your meal, it was garnished with a piece of like kale and then a beet.
Yeah, it's race car food.
Yeah,
what it is.
Yep, it's race car food.
Yep.
It's race car food.
It's race car food.
It was awesome. And I remember my dad telling, because that was a place we'd go like on Sunday afternoons, right?
The reason I say that
loved it.
is the same group of people you see at a Mr. Steak, you see at a NASCAR rally. It's those 2 circles, those Venn diagrams, a circle.
Right. And there's a certain age of people who like
they know their steak, they know their potatoes, they know their buffets.
Bingo, right? It's the epitome, and it's the epitome of class to them, right? Like this is a classy meal out for us.
And in Las Vegas saw that and said, hey, that's really smart. We're going to put that in every building.
And that's what I feel like when I walk into Binion's. I'm like, it's the Mr. Steak Casino.
Yes. or from my perspective, the North American Steak Buffet, which is the one that I would go to in South University. I don't know if I ever went to Mr. Steak.
Now, Mr. Steak, it wasn't a steak, like it wasn't as buffet as North American Steak Buffet was. This one, like you actually did order off of a menu, and then you included with it, you got this gigantic salad bar that had soup and all this kind of stuff, right? Same thing with like a Bonanza or a Ponderosa. I feel were brothers to what Mr. Steak, more or less was.
like are the mashed potatoes being served to you with an ice cream scoop?
Bingo, right? Does your baked potato come pre-slit with a pat of butter in there, right? Like these are the things that you want.
Do they only go through one tray of green beans for the entire day?
Right. And it came out of a can with 3 gallons of green beans in it earlier in that day, right? Like that's what we're talking about. And Mr. Steak will always have a special place in my heart because my grandma, that's the thing, is she wanted to treat us to Mr. Steak. That being said, I'm also going to kind of hijack this next one a little bit too, because there is news about this changing right now and actually going back to what I remember as a kid. On Saturdays and Sundays, at the Bowler on South University Drive, there was a gigantic buffet restaurant that had windows that overlooked the bowling alley. So you could watch people bowl while you ate. It's where I was introduced to deep fried breaded shrimp. It's where I found out that you could dip deep fried breaded shrimp in ketchup and people wouldn't look at you weird. It had all these options.
That is definitely bowling alley food.
Yep, and it was the same carpet up there that it was downstairs. And then when you were done, while your parents were smoking upstairs, you could go downstairs and play all the video games. Where my friend Andrew, he and I were playing air hockey, and the air hockey puck must have lifted off. It hit him in the gums and tore out a piece of his gums, and that became a pretty gross thing
to me.
As a group of people,
every kid when they played Tekken for the first time, it was at a bowling alley.
Oh, it must have been, right?
Yeah.
Bowling alleys must have opened, and those grew out of the outlet, just boom. That and maybe the T2 Judgment Day game that had it was 3D, and you had a little gun that you used.
Yeah.
So
gotta get those quarters, man.
Those were 2 places that my grandmother thought were so classy. And so these are the places where she'd pull out her checkbook and write a check and take us out to dinner. And that was a big deal for my grandmother. Okay. What else doesn't exist? We can all mourn Godfather's Pizza as well.
Godfather's Pizza is there, but and we could mourn Happy Joe's as well.
Bingo.
We don't have a Happy Joe's, but I actually want to shift genres of food here and go straight to my all-time favorite restaurant that no longer exists. This is 100% a tragedy for me.
Oh boy.
It's Everest Tikka House in Moorhead. Now we do have Himalayan yak, which is basically the closest thing you're going to get. And they're delicious. So they are now my current favorite.
I've even heard tell that at one point the reason Himalayan yak exists is because a couple people at Everest became upset with ownership. So they left, and so a lot of the recipes were the same.
My understanding is a lot of the food in town is like that.
Right. I can't vouch for that, but that's what I've heard through the grapevine. You're the second person in a week who's told me how much they mourn Everest Tikka House. And the other person was, she was telling me, she's like, I went there on the last day, and it was they had crossed a bunch of things off the menu that they no longer had. And she goes, that was one of the saddest days of my life, was having to say goodbye to that, which happened to be a former Godfather's Pizza location.
Yeah, something about, a blustery winter Sunday morning, and you're like, what would fucking slap right now would go over to Everest and get some chicken tikka masala and some veggie pakora and some naan and some chili shrimp and a big old thing of chai. Oh my God. And I would sit there with my friends for hours. It was the best. I miss that deeply, and that will never return.
Their buffet was one of the best buffets because they rotated the things that were on there. So things that I normally wouldn't order off the menu that became my favorites, things like gobi Manchurian, which is a cauliflower dish with a lot of great spices and onions and peppers. I never would have ordered that, but because I was introduced to it via their buffet, I'll be there forever.
Any chickpea dish, I was like, I need this. I need
the
this.
chickpea dishes.
Chickpea, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, the veggie pakora is a mash of chickpea batter, and then it's basically onion and spinach fritters and peppers. I think is sometimes mixed in there too. But yeah, I mean, like a chickpea and a masala sauce. Oh my God, it's so good.
Jill and I have started eating a lot of, at the Himalayan yak, the palak soup, which essentially is a cream and spinach soup that gets blended. And it is just, they put chunks of potato in there, and there's ginger. And it is the type of thing where if I'm not feeling well, this cures me.
Okay.
It cures me. And they serve it. Somehow it maintains heat so well that even after the trek from Himalayan yak to my home, and then 10 minutes into me eating, because I got to eat my momos first. It is still like gonna kill me. It's so hot. Like I could drop it on my crotch and never be able to father a child. It's so hot.
Do we? And we don't have a Thai orchid anymore, do we? Is that gone too? Is Thai orchid gone?
No.
We have a Lila Thai. I don't know if we have a Thai.
No, we have, Thai orchid moved to West Fargo.
Oh, it did?
It did.
Oh,
so
okay.
Thai orchid exists. It's in an old Taco John's on Main Avenue just before the fairgrounds.
Okay, well, good to know.
Yes.
I'm happy we still have that.
And in fact, like this move has been interesting for them because they cut their floor space down by about half of what they had from their second location, which was in the Moorhead Center Mall. And now they're utilizing all these fresh grown things. Greatest thing about this, it's got a drive-through.
Okay. Because
Their drive-through.
Their yellow curry was for me like one of those, like I really need my food to be medicine today.
Yeah.
And their yellow curry and chicken and rice was just, it was spectacular.
It's where it's at.
Spectacular. I'm so glad we still have them.
We've
How about
lost,
you?
We've lost what? For what?
I mean, for, I've what's another restaurant for you? Do you have another space in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I will always beat the drum of why did we lose our Outback Steakhouse? I don't understand. The bloomin' onion, the ranch dressing, the bread, the King's prime rib, the Alice Springs chicken, the cheese fries, everything about it. Whenever I go to the Twin Cities, and I don't wear this as a badge of honor, it's almost a badge of shame. There's one Outback Steakhouse left in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And I go to it almost every single time I go to the cities. Almost every single time. When I went to the cities during the pandemic, I ordered to go so we could bring it back to our hotel room. And it was the first time. In fact, Jill and I, we were going to we were going to a wedding. In fact, I was officiating the wedding, and we were staying in Albertville, which is not close to the cities. And so we went there, we picked it up, we brought it back, and ended up getting food poisoning from it. It was like one of those things where I've waited 2 years to have this, and now it's done me dirty. So bad that when I was officiating the wedding, which is one of my favorites to officiate, it was so much fun. It was Luke, the old IT guy at work, who became such a good friend and is just such a good human being, and his wife Kendra. They're awesome folks, and both of them have great parents. And I was so excited about this one. And they said, "Listen, it can be nerdy, but not too nerdy." And I'm like, "Fantastic! I got a great Lord of the Rings joke I'm going to throw in there." And the whole time I'm up there, I'm like, do not throw up. Do not throw up on these people. Do not throw up. And so when the wedding was done, I had to essentially we Irish goodbye'd it.
Yep.
And I felt so bad because I'm we had been invited to this wedding.
You officiated. You weren't invited.
Yeah,
you officiated it.
And I was like, if I don't get out of here, and I ended up throwing up 5 times on the way home. It was awful.
Oh, man.
And when you have something that you love and then you get sick afterwards, you kind of have to take that break.
Yeah. How did you feel about Bertrossa's?
Oh, I've got amazing news about Bertrossa's.
What is it?
Okay, so Bertrossa's in the basement of the Black Building, the best Chicago-style food in Fargo, without a doubt, right? They sold Vienna beef sausages, their Italian dip sandwiches. If you've never had an Italian Chicago-style dip sandwich, you order it wet, or you order it dry, wet, or sloppy. And what they do is they take the bun and they dip it in the juices from the sandwich. And if you get it sloppy, you need a fork to eat it. They had great beer cheese soup. It was awesome. I thought that was gone forever. Yeah. On Thursdays at Dempsey's, they've revived the Bertrossa's menu. So I went and ate there with our friend Rachel Hoffman, and we had 2 sandwiches. Each of us had a sandwich. There was 2 beers and a pop, 2 beer cheese soups, and then you get a free hot dog with any drink you order. So then we had 2 hot dogs. All of it said and done was $30.
I thought they had sold the beer cheese recipe.
Okay, they did, but that doesn't mean they can't still make it themselves.
Oh, okay.
I think they gave the rights to someone else to start producing it, but they could still have it themselves.
Got it.
Tucker, it's amazing. I have brought coworkers there.
That's fantastic.
And we got to go there and have it because the sand. Okay. I work with a guy who is from the Chicagoland area, and he's been bummed the last couple of years because Fargo just doesn't do any Chicago style food in the same way that we don't have a great great Philly cheesesteak.
Right. Not a single one.
I told him about this, and I watched him take his first bite of it, and he goes, yeah.
Excellent.
And I was like, we've done it. And so thank you, Dempsey's. Thank you for bringing up Petrosa's, because that was one of the ones I wanted to note about, that it's been revived. And I think there's space in our town to revive some of these restaurants.
That would be great. I mean,
They all could use a mini golf course.
One thing that I'll always miss still is the aesthetic of going down to the basement of the Black Building.
Yeah.
Of course, that's gone forever now.
With the fake tree that was in the middle.
Yes, it was so good, so cheesy. I loved it.
And they had a giant projection screen television that never was on. Just
Or
gathering dust.
It would be on, but it would be like CNN sometimes. And
Yeah, just
be really
weird.
distracting.
Yeah,
I mean, it felt like an outlet mall that was dying, which is basically what it was.
Bingo, yeah.
But no,
I used to go to the
Petrosa's.
Black Building because they would give a storefront to the Fargo Police Department, and they had this deal where it was like Christmas with a cop, where a police officer would walk a kid through, and then your parents would give them like, here's $10. They can pick any gift for $10, and then they'd help you wrap it, so that you picked out a gift for your parents and wrapped it that they wouldn't know what it is, right? And I always thought that was a cool program. And then I remember asking my mom later on, she's like, well, yeah, because they're kids, small enough kids that they didn't really know how money worked. And so you were buying stuff that you thought looked neat, right? Like, and in fact, I think there's moments where I was like, hey, can I have that gift that I picked out? Like, it's for me.
What was the name of the burrito shop that took over the Petrosa's space after it left? Where the guy like left the country at one point?
Yeah, it was not Romans. It was
shit. It began with an R, didn't it?
Yeah.
I can't remember, because that was the guy who you're like, there's no way this guy's making money.
Casa Ramos.
Ramos.
Yeah.
Yep, Ramos. Yep. Because the guy was super nice, and you'd pay him $5 and you'd get $20 worth of food.
Also, sometimes it was open and sometimes it wasn't.
Yeah. And then one day he was gone. Mm-hmm. And then we found out that he's in Canada, I think.
Well, we thought he had faked his death.
We thought he'd faked his death.
We thought he was dead at first, and then it's like, turns out this guy is actually alive.
Yeah.
And so that was a messed up situation. And I think that's one of the hard things with a restaurant that you love, is some of them disappear overnight. That's what happened to Outback.
Yep.
I ate there on a Sunday, and on Monday it was gone.
To be someone who opens a restaurant, I mean, if you really have to want it on some level, because the amount of pain you have to put up with to make your restaurant profitable, regardless of how quality your food is, even if you have the best food in town, even if you're filling your building with customers every night, you might still be just barely making it.
Right,
because
the margins are
that
so small.
are that bad. I mean, I've looked through tons of, there are like websites out there where you can go and watch it. They're made for people who are looking to invest in new franchises. And so owners of their company were like, we want to franchise this now, and here's our pitch. So I've watched through a bunch of those. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, their margins are so teeny tiny. I can understand if you are someone with a ton of money, where you're like, yeah, the margin's small, but it's almost, there's a guarantee I'm going to get that margin of profit over here, and then it's just going to be making that profit for me. But still.
Well, to me, most restaurant owners, it's an investment group of some kind.
Right.
It's hardly ever a single person who's putting all of their capital into this thing.
Right.
And there are certainly people who start their own restaurant and work at it, but not everyone's supposed to be a restaurateur.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like, I've heard some pretty horrible stories. There's
You wake up, you go there, you're there until it's time to go to bed.
Bingo. Right. And you're dealing with people who don't want to come in at work. You're dealing with people who want free meals because they didn't feel it was satisfactory, but they ate 3/4 of it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the hard stuff. In downtown, there was a space that's now a dog food store that was called, I think it was Isabella's for a while. It was an Italian place. It was so good. And then it became the Beefsteak Club, which is this trendy like steakhouse that I really liked. There was also a restaurant in what was the Hub, which used to be Playmakers, which was a single building that had 4 bars in it, and it was called Prime.
Okay.
And it was a high-end steakhouse feel, and it was, I believe, attached to a comedy club that they opened up in there. And it was great, and it was all like, the comedy club was great. It's all dark, like velvet drapes and stuff like that, and there were no TVs in there. It felt really good. I remember we ate at Prime the night that the Sex and the City movie came out, and we had tickets to it. Unfortunately, the service was so crap that at one point we said, we've got to leave because we got to make it to this sold out movie. And so we get to the movie and we've missed like the first 3 minutes. And I don't believe my sister is very happy about that. And then we went back because we said, listen, just box up all the food and we'll grab it when we go. So we went back and they're like, oh, well, we threw it all away. We're like, well, then, but we paid for it. And they're like, well, yeah, but you didn't stay to eat it. And they're like, we're like, yeah, because we sat down here 4 hours ago and you guys hadn't figured out what's going on yet.
You know, it's a restaurant that doesn't exist here anymore that I don't miss. The Cinema Grill.
Oh, indeed. Indeed.
Last time I went there, I got severe food poisoning.
Did you?
For like a week.
Remember our old coworker Jeremy had that story of applying there, and they're like, "Could you work right now?" Because
he sort of just walked in and started running the projector.
And they're like, "Could you like run Emperor's New Groove? Like it's supposed to start 5 minutes ago."
Yeah, last movie I watched there was The Heartbreakers with
with Jennifer Love Hewitt.
And Sigourney Weaver, and it melted 3/4 of the way through. So I've never seen the ending.
Oh.
I ordered a taco pizza. I got an olive pizza, which I didn't want. Tried to pick the olives off of it, ate a bit of it, got food poisoning from that. They charged me 50 cents for a cup of water. The tickets were free at that point. They were no longer charging for admission. When the film melted, they gave us all free admission coupons.
Oh, fun.
And then they closed. There was food all over the floor. I think they closed within a week after that particular viewing. And I was like, it makes sense because I'm barfing my guts out for the entire weekend, I think it was.
I am not a fan when it comes to places where they're disturbing you during movies. Yeah. I've never been to some place where I feel like they have clinched the idea of like serving food while a movie is playing.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
Yeah, that's not, I don't need that for that situation. I think Marcus has gone into obviously a better direction. These are more comfortable seats. There's more options for you to get in there. But after that, leave people alone.
Yeah, right.
Don't go into the experience.
I went and saw As Good as It Gets at the Cinema Grill, and I remember someone eating a plate of buffalo wings, but like sucking on them, like, and thinking to myself, the irony here is that the main character of this movie, would he actually be in this theater listening to this person sucking wings, would go over and freak out on them. Like, that would have been interesting.
I guess I'm surprised I like restaurants for as much as I hate people.
Yeah.
Because like... I don't like going to movies for the most part because there's so many fucking people everywhere who are just like, what's he saying? Why are they doing that? Is happening. I just don't want them around me.
Here's what amazes me. I go out to eat all the time, and there's probably 30 restaurants in this town I've never been to.
What is it about the culture in this town? I mean, I think most people do that. There's just so much choice. And it's not as cheap as it used to be.
No.
Flat out, not at all. You can't eat at McDonald's for less than $12. Right. Even with the dollar menu, you can't do it. Do they even have a dollar menu at McDonald's?
They've got what they call the dollar menu that starts, I believe, at $2 items.
Starts at $2 items. Yeah.
But things like you used to be able to get 2 double cheeseburgers for $1. Mm-hmm. And inflation in this economy, blah, blah, blah.
Blah,
all
blah,
that
blah,
kind of
blah,
stuff,
blah.
Right?
We don't see McDonald's books.
And food costs have gone up, and the amount of money that we're paying, the question of like, should servers be making, like $15 an hour plus tips?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's really tough it's tough for me as someone who neither owns a restaurant nor works at a restaurant to go, the only people I hear from are those who have skin in the game, right? Mm-hmm. Who like it affects them in some way. And I'm much more comfortable assuming that if the restaurant is an established large one, meaning it's a corporate one, they're probably doing way better than the people who are working there. I don't know what the magic number should be, but it does seem like when everything becomes more expensive, that maybe you should be getting paid more to cover that expense. But I don't know. I both want to be like, yeah, they have the right to pay you what they want to pay you. But at the same time, there's a level that's just not realistic, right?
I don't want to sound like a monster, but I'm going to, because I recently went to a downtown restaurant, a fairly new one that charges a premium for their food and wants you to think that it's the coolest, hottest place downtown, right? Our server, we were one of 2 tables that were in the entire restaurant at that time. There was maybe 9 people working. I saw a bunch of people behind behind their bar and walking around. Takes almost 15 minutes for someone to come over. Now, given I understand maybe they didn't know that someone was sat in their section, right? Finally comes over, hands us the menu, and I said, hey, listen, I see that this is the brunch menu, but do you have your lunch menu? And they said, no, it's not lunchtime. It was 1:15, and I'm like, and I said, so you're only serving the brunch menu now? And he said, yeah. And I inquired, I was like, could I get any of the things off of like the starter menu for lunch? Because we had guests from out of town, and I was trying to show this place off because it is new and fun and trendy. And he goes, it's just the brunch stuff.
He was a dick.
So what's interesting is you could actually go up to the bar and buy the things that I'm wondering because it also happened. This place happens to be attached to a hotel that's in a new tower. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I think you can follow that, right?
Right.
It was just like ridiculous what we were doing, going back and forth with this. And so then we got our meals, and given like the food was still good, right? And Jill had asked, do you have ranch? And he just goes, no, and walks away. Rather than saying, oh, we don't have ranch, but we have a couple like house-made dressing, stuff like this. There's nothing like that. And finally, when the tab was like, when he brought the tab to us, it was wrong. And I was like, okay, well, we didn't get, mimosas, and, there's a charge here for one of those lunch things that I'd asked about that you said was unavailable, the pimento like dip. And he's like, oh yeah, hold on. And so what I think had happened was he had given our bill to another table, which had more people at it. Yeah. And then had given us theirs. So they of course wanted to pay their bill because it was probably $50 less than ours. And so he came out and he goes, okay, well, I talked to the manager and we were able to kind of like switch these things around. I'm like, yeah.
We were able to switch these
right?
things
Like I would hope so, because I am not the person who needs to be dealing, like
that dude's just bad at his job.
Right.
He's just bad at it.
And so that's the thing is like, and it took us forever, like even to get the bill and stuff like that. So again, are you really putting in $15 an hour worth of effort on top of the tip? Because by the time, like if he was getting $15 an hour plus tip, I'm guessing he's making $90 like an hour.
Oh, really?
Because like I left a $25 tip, and that other table probably left a $25 tip.
Well, you shouldn't have rewarded his shitty his shitty behavior. Here's
But I'm also a local celebrity, so I don't want to be like local radio man is
Here's
screwed.
the way I approach these things is like, if you're an employer and you want to be able to say, I need to get someone who will give me $15 worth of work, you need to pay them at least $20 because that's like, you're going to get up to $20 worth of quality from them.
Yeah.
But you could also argue that, let's say it's not 15. What is the minimum right now? What is the minimum?
$7.95.
Is it really that low?
I'm pretty sure. Like
I thought it was in the teens. I thought it had gone up to 12 something, but I could be totally wrong. Let's just call it 12 for right now.
Okay.
If you pay $12 an hour, you're
$7.25.
It's still a $7.25.
$7.25. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. This rate applies to covered non-exempt workers.
And of course, it's been at that rate for how long?
Right. And the minimum wage for employees who receive tips is $2.13 an hour.
Yeah. So I'd say that, that might be the federal the minimum wage that you have to pay. But it's rarely will you find a job that's worth it to go do for that amount, right? If you're going, listen, I'm a good worker, I'm going to go trade my labor for money. That's too low for me. That makes a ton of sense. And I think that's becoming the reality for more and more people. That means it's a reality for the business too. I'm not trying to say, oh, businesses have all this money. No, they fucking don't. They're in the same boat. They're trying to make money and they're trying to leverage the effort and things that they put into it to get something out of it. So it just makes me think like, I don't buy the I don't buy the notion of I should be able to buy a house by just working at McDonald's, but I also feel like you shouldn't have to be like, McDonald's is one of my 5 jobs that I have to do. Yeah.
Maybe some kind of forced profit sharing, right? Like if this McDonald's makes $1 million this year and its total cost to operate was $500,000. It's not $500,000 worth of profit. It should be 10% of that goes. So you're going to spend $50,000 amongst your 20 employees.
I mean, you'd think that if we were truly a free market, which we're not, you would think, or that you would think that in a capitalistic society that you just need the competition. And so what do workers have to do to leverage companies to compete with each other?
Right.
That's tough.
Yep.
It's a leverage game at the end of the day. That's all it ever is.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.
Tucker, I was a server for 1 day. Actually, not even a day. Like 45 minutes before I was like, nope, I'm out. Peace out. I'm done delivering salads.